we've gone to war for less.
Yes.
That is fantastic.
Hello and welcome. Today we're going to do one of my favorite things, and that is sampling some beautiful whiskey. So we're going to show the differences of what is the similarities between these three bottles and this one. Is that for the price of this bottle, you can get these three bottles for it. And as you can see, all of them are single malts. This one's obviously a U.S. whiskey, so it's the whiskey with an E. And then we have three whiskeys with the Y. And so I brought my resident expert from Scotland, Cam Stewart.
Very nice to meet you all. Happy to be here. Happy to drink on a random Tuesday, so you never have to ask me twice.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so he's going to make sure and give us some proper instructions on Scotch, the whiskey without an E, and then we're going to introduce him a little bit to some whiskey with an E. So, welcome.
The reason I do that is because I wanted to read you one scene 3 times, because I wasn't. Even though I thought I was.
You're just like, mother of God.
Oh yeah, that is honestly painful.
Yeah. No, I love it. So, all right, first one that we're going to go with is probably the cheapest bottle that we have out of this, and that's Courage and Conviction from the Virginia Distillery. It's an American single malt aged in a sherry cask, which Cam has told me doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I find it's interesting, really. And when we think of whiskey, we don't think of Virginia because perhaps being as a stereotypical Brit, why would we think of Virginia when we think of single malt whiskey? There's plenty of other places. Namely the Highland Park we'll get on to.
Is it the same way with like French wine versus California wine? You're just like California
Well, actually it's interesting when you compare the wine conversation to whiskey. Now, whiskey is a slightly more acquired taste, as I'm sure the people who have stuck with us for the first few minutes are already aware. Whiskey is more of an acquired taste. But when it comes to wines, because there is such a plethora, it does mean there are more palates for people to take from. And I do think that you will generally find two camps with wine. You have the old world, so your France, etc., or your new world, which does include California. Personally, my favourite wine is South African, which is a...
Really?
Yeah, exactly. It's a complete step change. But I'm very interested in finding out. This could actually be my first Virginia single malt, so I'm very excited to try this.
Well, let's get down to it then.
Always satisfying. Always satisfying. I'm not driving after this either, so
yeah.
we are completely sanguine to go full throttle if we choose to do so.
Which probably the video as we continue on will be a lot more
progressively more slurring words, but
right. Yeah, these things happen.
The initial, it passes the sniff test. Obviously, it doesn't quite have the kick in the back of the throat, but it does taste very nice. And now I'm not going to pretend that I'm some sort of whiskey sommelier and I'm going to spit it into a bucket because that would be a waste of everybody's time and money. But it's warm, isn't it?
It's very. Ooh.
It's warm. It's very nice though.
Yeah.
It's very drinkable.
Very drinkable.
I don't feel that you get some of the smokier ones, especially, that really do punch you in the back of the throat. I think this is very drinkable, but I believe the bottle said it's going to be at least 3 years of age. Is that right?
I believe that is correct.
Because when it comes to at least 3 years...
aged a minimum of 3 years.
Exactly, which means it could have been 5, could have been 7, but they only want to market it as a minimum of 3, which is absolutely fine, but it means it doesn't quite have the same legs that you would get in some of the ones that we'll come on to.
Mm-hmm. And the finish is creamy and exceptionally smooth with... to do aging in sherry casks brings forward notes of cherry, fig, golden raisin, and caramelized plum.
Some of that sounds like it was written by ChatGPT, but I will say it is smooth, I will say it is drinkable, and if it is the cheapest amongst the 4 we had this evening, it's not a bad drink.
Mm-mm. Wow, that's good. And apologies,
Slange. This is Gaelic for cheers. The full, actually, I don't know if we've had a conversation about the full cheers. So it's Slangevar, to which the response is Slangevor. It effectively means good health. But yeah, so the toaster would say Slange or Slangevar, and the recipient would say Slàinte So it's
Slàinte and Slàinte.
Indeed. So Slàinte.
Slàinte.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
That's a good one. That is.
Shall we open the other one?
We shall.
All right.
We shall.
Cool.
All right. Good. I like that.
I do too.
And I actually like the whiskey as well.
Yeah. All right. So now we're working on to the second bottle, and this is Balvenie, aged 12 years, and Sweet Toast of American Oak. I chose this bottle because we had the American whiskey. I'm American. My Scottish friend. It's Scotch inside of here, so it's a kind of a good blending of, across the Atlantic, if you will.
Of course, bearing in mind it's not called Scotch back in the UK.
Touche.
It's just called whiskey.
Fair.
But nevertheless, yes, it is. since we're in the good old US of A,
Yeah.
it is Scotch. Yes.
There you go. Scotch, whiskey, Scotch, same. But all right. But yeah, from this again, the Balvenie distillery, built on the stories that are told from each generation of craftsmen to the next.
That sounds less ChatGPT written. However, what I will say is I don't think I've ever had American oak before. Naturally, why would we have that back in the UK? It doesn't make sense. So I am interested to see if the flavour profile is different. But I'm always enjoying the sound of the cork popping for the first time if we all listen in. We've gone to war for less.
Yes.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you kindly.
Now, here's a question for you.
I was just say I haven't provided any of these. This is entirely on the host of the show.
Oh yes, and we'll explain. I'll explain at the end for those the 3 bottles and stuff for it. But the 3 bottles that we bought on there from the Courage and Conviction and the 2 Balvenies, those were a Valentine's gift that I got to purchase. And the Highland Park one was from a friend of mine, and I'll kind of just give it a shout out right now. But Boss Bean, you brought this all the way from across the Pacific, and I just want to say thank you, Boss Bean. You're the best. And I hope to share this with you when you come back next time. But yeah, so anyways, yeah.
That's it. Slàinte.
Slàinte.
Very close. We are getting there.
Sorry,
Viewers.
yes.
By the end of this, we'll get it right.
Oh yes.
It does smell very nice. Again, it smells smooth, similar to the Virginia one, but
It's got a little bit more sweetness to it.
it does, doesn't it? That's actually easier to drink. That is easier to drink than the last one. And now I will be honest, viewer, we haven't put any ice or any drops of water in it. Now, I will address this to mainly my dad. I apologise. He insists that single malt should have a drop of whiskey. Is that correction? A drop of whiskey? A drop of water in the whiskey to open up the flavour. Most professional whiskey tasters would agree. I just think it's a little bit of faff and it doesn't always create the same experience every time. But this seems a more timid flavour profile than the Virginia one.
Agreed. Yeah. So this one is even though they're both very smooth, this one definitely doesn't have the punchiness to it, like a bourbon, like you would have from like a bourbon.
Agreed. I'm tasting this very towards the front of the mouth in terms of it's. Don't get me wrong, very drinkable, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's aged 12 years. It actually advertises the sweet toast of American oak, and that sweetness is prevalent in what I'm tasting. That sweetness is definitely there when consuming.
Yeah. Mm.
It's good, but it's nothing to write home about.
No. But it's definitely a good Friday sipper if you were
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Friday, Thursday,
Tuesday,
Wednesday,
a day that ends in
lunchtime on Monday.
Especially when you've had a crap day already and you hate the boss. He's like, well, just crack a Balvenie. Call it a day.
By lunchtime on Monday. Sounds like a plan.
Makes the rest of the week go by faster. Mm.
Yes, I would. If I was to give that sort of, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it if somebody asked me which single malt should I get. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's by no means unpleasant.
No, agreed.
Mm.
Yes. Would you say that this is now obviously whiskey in Scotland you can have like your peaty whiskies and your other stuff. This is obviously doesn't have a lot of peat because I'm not a fan of the peaty scotches. No,
Right.
there's a few that are good,
Right.
but I will say that most of them, like I have another good friend of mine that is a whiskey connoisseur of all of this stuff, and he loves peaty ones. And he's like, dude, here you gotta try this one, and I'm like, all I smell is smoke and dirt.
Which is ideal, and actually, it's interesting you mention that because if you are interested in a very smoky whiskey with a Y, not an EY, there is a much cheaper alternative. There is the famous grouse. Well, famous grouse, as most people are aware of. They actually do a black grouse blended whiskey, so it's not single malt. Oh. It's blended. However, if what you're looking for is the feeling of somebody kicking you in the back of the throat, black grouse, much cheaper option. A lot of people won't know, and even fewer will care.
I like it. Sounds good. Would you like to crack open the 14?
Oh, well, if you insist, it would be rude not to. We've come all this way so far.
Fair enough. I love it. Let's get to it. We are now having our third bottle, and this is the Balvenie 14 Caribbean Cask. This is actually one of my favorite whiskeys. So it's kind of like a no kidding, like if it's a little on the pricier end, and so not really pricey, but like kind of pricey, right? And to the point where it's like it's a special occasion, if you will. Right?
Yes.
And so when I got the green light to go and say, hey, you can spend $300 on whiskey, and I kind of buried the lead there, sorry. Of those 3 bottles, I was like, ooh, I need one of these, because I had drank all of mine. So anyways, the Balvenie 14.
Yes, I mean, this is coming directly from Scotland, so I can't say too much. But the concept of a Caribbean cask, and then the subtext is extra matured in rum casks, I find very interesting because whilst I do drink rum, I would never associate it with single malt. That doesn't mean that it's wrong by any means. I just wouldn't associate it with single malt. I am interested in how it tastes because I have a very fun story and I will tell you as you begin to pour my drink. I have a very fun story. It's the first time I really had rum. It was on my honeymoon in Antigua.
No shit.
So my honeymoon in Antigua that I went on by myself. I've never told you this story.
You have not,
viewer. It's even.
Hold on, you work with somebody for this long, and a story of like going to Antigua for his honeymoon alone. You'd think that would come in
relatively. I promise you, it's a funny story though. So effectively, my wife, who was going through medical school at the time, had additional exams to do, and they were scheduled during the honeymoon. So I said, "Well, I'm still going anyway. I paid for the flipping thing, so I went." I got 4 days in Antigua by myself in a premier resort, and I'm not kidding, because Antigua, as a Caribbean island, has to ship in bottled water, but they make rum on the island. It was the same price, maybe slightly more, but it was the same price between rum and water. So obviously, I just drank the rum. So I'm whilst I've never had a Caribbean rum cask single malt, I'm very excited.
Slangevar.
Oh yes, the smell instantly. Yes. Yes, it does have a peculiar characteristic towards the end of the smell, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can put my finger on it, but here we go, team. That has more of a kick.
Oh yeah.
You could. It's not quite burning the esophagus, but it is certainly there.
Yeah. One thing I've always learned about like whiskey, you know that like burning sensation you feel in your throat when you drink it, that's your soul slightly
improving slightly.
Yes.
Yeah. It smells very nice. Interesting that you mentioned you're not a huge fan of the smokiness, because it does have a certain smoky taste to it.
It does. It does, but it's like. I guess it's like, it's on my terms, if that makes sense.
It's not too much of a...
Yeah.
One thing that I have noticed is that this is signed by a chap called David Stewart. Now that is the name of my uncle, but I highly doubt, he's got anything to do with this other than drinking it. But it is interesting because, of course, when you compare a lot of the Scottish single malt whiskey distilleries, they've been around in the same families for generations.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Well, so I once canoed the length of the River Spey, which is about 160 kilometres or about 100 miles in freedom metrics.
Thank you.
Pleasure. We use miles anyway.
Yeah.
But canoed the length
Could
of
you
the River
convert
Spey.
that to Big Macs per bombs dropped?
Yeah, something to do with eagles per freedom mile. I'm
Yes,
not quite
there.
sure. But
No, that's the nautical mile equivalence of like how many bald eagle miles.
I once you brought me onto a sidebar. I was in Virginia and I was at a ice cream restaurant stop on somewhere on the highway, somewhere on the main road.
Was it Buc-ee's?
No, it wasn't Buc-ee's. No, but clearly a sign from the COVID era said when you're in the line, please stand 1 cow length apart. And I thought anything but the metric system. But the point of the story was there are lots of small distilleries, even now, that are family owned at the top of Scotland that are lovely. And obviously, some of the bigger ones do make it here to the US, and rightly so, because this is a very nice drink.
You didn't like it? Good.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is one of my favorites to have on hand when able. So. One thing I noticed on the bottle here is the nose. Rich, sweet, and creamy toffee with fresh fruit notes. I don't know if I got the fresh fruit notes with the nose.
The creamy toffee though, I feel.
For the taste, it had rounded with vanilla, sweet oak, and fruitiness. I didn't get the fruitiness, but definitely the rounded with vanilla and the sweet oak taste.
I agree with that assessment.
And then the finish, warm, soft, and lingering.
That's probably the most accurate part of the three.
Concur.
Absolutely.
ChatGPT, or do you think they went with
No,
Gemini?
I think they may. Well, with Gemini or other AI models are available.
Yeah, Gronk. Actually, I think the first one was Gronk. It's a little bit more punchy.
Yeah, something like that. That is my favourite of the three.
Well,
But I also think it's, when I say strongest, I don't mean strongest in terms of proof or in terms of percentage alcohol. Strongest in terms of, it's the one you have to savour the most. The others seem very drinkable.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So like those you could just, it's a good sipper, good to go. Whereas this one, it's like, it's an experience to have.
I agree.
Okay. No, I concur with you on that one. So, you ready for the coup de grace?
And this is what I've been waiting for all evening, yes.
Fair enough. There we go. So let's get into it. All right. And now we're back for the coup de grace. So again, Highland Park 21. Like I said, another shout out to Boss Bean. You're the best. Thank you, Stephanie. She is a partner in a law firm. And so to her, this was a adequate bottle to purchase. It's good stuff.
Yes.
Yes. Anyways, but I will let you kind of. I know you kind of like a little bit of Highland Park. Don't you?
I do, yes, and actually, full disclosure viewer, I brought some other whiskies for us to have sort of afterwards, not part of the episode here, but I did bring a Highland Park, and one of the things I wanted to note the difference was the bottle itself. So the Highland Park bottle that I brought, mostly already consumed, has very minor detail around the bottom centre here, but this is almost artwork in itself, and as one should expect for the price of the bottle, but it really does show there is a degree of craftsmanship in every detail here, which I'm thoroughly excited for.
And even on both sides too.
Absolutely. No expense spared on the bottle perspective. Now, Highland Park is a solid staple from a whiskey perspective. You know, one could argue that perhaps it is a more commercial element as opposed to some of the slightly smaller distilleries. It's still very good, and I'm thoroughly excited about this. I mean, 21-year bottle, I mean, that means this was bottled in public maths, 2005.
Yes.
My goodness, in 2005, I was still in primary school, which I don't know what that relates to over here, but basically I was 11 years old. Yes, anyway, moving on swiftly, because it makes everybody in the room uncomfortable.
I was going to say, yeah, how much was I? So 40 minus 21, 19 years old. So
Well,
I was in college.
Well, there we are.
There we go.
The amusing thing, of course, is in the UK, the legal drinking age is 18, meaning you could go into a bar and order a drink that's older than you are. As an 18-year-old. How interesting is that?
Yeah.
But yes, I'm very much looking forward to this. So, Slanjavar.
Slanjavar. And so you were, when I've noticed as it kind of, we circle through there, and I see a little bit of the stuff that's kind of coming down off the side of it. Like when you're doing wine, or red wines, you would always kind of like swing it around there, and people talk about like the legs.
Yes, it's a similar thing for whiskey, and it may be hard to see from your perspective, but effectively, when one draws the whiskey down, the length of time that it takes for the whiskey to descend the glass is referred to as the legs. It's a broad indicator of the age of the whiskey. It is not an exact metric. Obviously, it depends on various things such as the age of the cask and where it is, because one of the things that makes single malt whiskey from Scotland very different is the weather in Scotland is broadly poor, but generally speaking, it is much colder than it is in places in the US. The so what behind that is that the profile that the cask goes through doesn't quite have the same expansion and contraction that it has over here. The reason why that's relevant is because a 21-year aged bottle, as we are about to experience from Scotland, there is less of the expansion and contraction, meaning the flavour profile is different than if you took the exact same water in the exact same bottle, or the exact same fluid, should I say, and put it in a warmer climate environment such as Tennessee, Kentucky, etc. So that's one of the things that makes this so impressive.
Okay.
Well, we've already said cheers, but we do the English variant as well.
There you go.
Oh, just the deepness from the smell. I can already feel that. And part of the whiskey tasting experience, folks, is not how quickly can we drink it. Part of the whiskey tasting experience is savouring. We've been talking about this for 5 minutes. Yeah. We've not even had a sip yet.
No.
And it's already. I'm salivating at the idea of this 21-year-old bottle of Highland Park. Let's taste. Oh. Wow. Words will emerge at some point. But...
Indeed. I would almost kind of go back to what you said about the 14-year Balvenie, of it being an experience. That was a flavor explosion in my mouth, so to speak. Or as some people say. I think we can't really say that anymore.
I think it's a combination of both. It tastes the smoothest of the lot.
Yes.
It's almost as if the particles within the liquid are less condensed. But on its way down, it develops or it presents a very warm, tingling sensation. Not just a little bit, but all the way down the throat. I mean, you could tell this is a expensive and legitimate bottle of single malt whiskey without the E. I'm very much a fan of this, and it is probably fair to say that this is worth the extra investment if you so happen to have the money lying around.
Fair enough.
The real question, though, is this worth two Balvenies and the Virginia whiskey? Is this worth all three?
That's a good question. Hence why I brought you as my resident expert on this. Would you rather, I guess there comes down to the hypothetical situation on the subreddit, would you rather have the Highland Park 21 or those three?
I think this is a discussion we had not too long ago because viewer, we do get into the important and philosophical discussions.
Yes.
Is if you can't enjoy a cup of coffee or tea, if we're British, if you can't enjoy a cup of tea with good company, you can't enjoy it anywhere.
That's touche.
And whilst this is undoubtedly the premier of the whiskies we've tried today, it is the company that you keep whilst drinking it that makes it the experience. The other ones were perfectly fine, and I would happily drink them any day. This is an elevated experience of the Highland Park that I would drink more than happily, but I think it is the company you keep with who you drink it that makes the difference. So yes, I'm a very big fan, and thank you very much for allowing me to join you on this whiskey tasting journey.
You're most welcome, and thank you for being a good friend of mine.
But the Highland Park is the best, by the way. Like, undoubtedly, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, my soul healing.
It's
all through there.
It's something.
Yes. Try.
Mate, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. No, genuine though.
Yeah.
That is incredible.